But I want the title again. Obama exposed there were no FISA warrants. There was no incidental surveillance. There was the hammer, the persecution of General Flynn. For years, I'm just selected quotes here. For years, Sally Yates, who was working in the National Security Division of the Department of Justice under Obama, for years, Sally Yates and James Clapper, who was a director of national intelligence under Obama, were acutely aware that the Obama administration was engaged in illegal domestic surveillance. In August of 2014, CIA contractor turned whistleblower Dennis Montgomery met with senior judge of the U.S. District Court for the District of Columbia, Royce C. Lamberth. Montgomery handed over to Judge Lambert a cache of Special Access Program. That's the SAP program. That's the highest level of secrecy in our government. SAP classified documents. Judge Lambert then approached FBI Director James Comey and Lambert's longtime friend, FBI General Counsel James Baker. The information exposed illegal domestic surveillance programs run by President Obama as an intelligence chiefs John Brennan and James Clapper. In April 2015, Sally Yates arrived at the Department of Justice headquarters in Washington, D.C. to begin her new job as President Obama's Deputy Attorney General. Within 1 month of her confirmation, so they closed the doors, to this information that was coming their way. Within 1 month of her confirmation, Yates barred the Department of Justice Inspector General from the Department of Justice's National Security Division, which had already taken possession of the SAP top secret information that Montgomery had turned over to Judge Lamberth. Whoa, this stuff's too hot. We don't want anybody nosing around. In August of 2015, Montgomery turned over to the FBI 47 hard drives that contained over 600 million pages of illegal harvested domestic surveillance data. Included in those 47 hard drives was illegally harvested information on Donald Trump and General Flynn and their families. FBI General Counsel, top lawyer in the FBI, James Baker, dispatched FBI agents to the Miami field office to take possession of Montgomery's 47 hard drives. How can we confirm that? October 2018, James Baker, same James Baker, testified in front of Congress behind closed doors under oath. But due to Doug Collins, then congressman from Georgia, he actually released the transcripts from the floor of the House of Representatives because he was sick of the cover-up. And here is what that testimony said. Baker testified on one day in October 2018, and he was asked, "You aware of any illegal surveillance by the Obama administration?" No. Came back for a second day of testimony. And you know what he said? I have to amend what I said last time. Was Baker worried about perjury? You bet he was. Here's what he said. So there was, I'm turning to the Bureau to describe this. This is under oath. So his client was an individual named Dennis Montgomery, who I believe, to the best of my recollection, he said that he had been a U.S. government contractor and in the course of that work had come across evidence of unlawful surveillance by the government of Americans and including government officials, and wanted to give that information to the Bureau, which eventually did take place, end quote. Those 47 hard drives proved that the Obama administration, in particular John Brennan and James Clapper, were conducting illegal domestic surveillance on the American public, the platform from which was called the Hammer. Why is that so important? Well, it violates the Fourth Amendment rights of thousands of American citizens. It's an illegal act. But remember, for Brennan as director of the CIA to be involved in this, the CIA's charter prohibits the agency from conducting domestic surveillance. Let's now go to May 8th, 2017. Lindsey Graham is the chairman of the Senate Judiciary Committee on Crime and Terrorism, and he has Sally Yates and James Clapper sitting in front of him. And he questioned them about the surveillance and unmasking of President Trump's national security advisor, Lieutenant General Michael Flynn. Here's what he said. Graham, I know, fairly significant do-nothing, but here he did something that went underneath the radar screen. Clearly, he, the incoming National Security Advisor, General Flynn, was talking to the Russians, and we know about it. But we also know there's no FISA warrant. And I'm going to find out about this, by the way. This is Graham speaking. The other way we know about what he was talking about with the Russians is if he was incidentally surveilled. Well, Inspector General Michael Horowitz of the Department of Justice, in his report, revealed that Flynn was not incidentally surveilled by the FBI. Graham went on, but there was no record of FISA warrants, and there was no record of incidental surveillance. And as Fanning and Jones point out, the cabal had made their fatal error that would expose the extent of their treachery. Senator Graham then shifted his attention to Clapper. Quote, do we know who unmasked the conversation between the Russian ambassador and General Flynn? Was there unmasking in this situation? Clapper. Okay. Are you looking at me? Okay. I don't know, Clapper stammered. Do you, Ms. Yates? Quote, I can't speak to this specific situation. Why? Because the Hammer was an SAP program. Can't be discussed in public. Quote, the bottom line here is I want to know how it got to the Washington Post. This is Graham. You see, folks, as Fanning and Jones point out, there would be no proof. There were no FISA warrants. There was no incidental surveillance documents to cover for their lies. The lack of proof exposed that Barack Obama had gleaned the information about General Flynn from another source, an illegal source. And you know who else was watching that testimony live on C-SPAN? Peter Strzok and his little squeeze, Lisa Page. And they started texting, and these texts were recently released. As Fanning and Jones point out, Strzok and Page text message would later reveal that they were watching and that they went apoplectic. Quote, it's the incorrect narrative they're setting. You see, folks, it became obvious that it was falling apart. They hadn't gotten their lies straight, and the train was derailing. Peter Strzok texted Lisa Page, are you watching this, Sally? F-bomb. Clapper and Yates, through Graham's question, are playing into there should be unmasking request record for incidental collection. That's the incorrect narrative. Uh-oh. The deep state train just got derailed. And then, through their text, they talk about having an immediate meeting. But Strzok and Page, as Fanning and Jones point out, had other things to worry about as well. They were responsible for manipulating the original 302 report on General Flynn in order to frame him. It's been well pointed out. When we talked about this months ago, we were derided as being conspiracy theorists. Strzok and Page changed the original 302, edited it, so it made it look like General Flynn lied. By the way, the original 302 is still missing. The end of the article says the following. United States Air Force Lieutenant General Tom McInerney remarked on the outrageous abuse of the hammer by Obama, Brennan, Clapper, Comey, Mueller, and decried their activities as, quote, being, quote, worse than Watergate. In December 2018, from his deathbed, U.S. Navy four-star Admiral James A. Ace Lyons, former Pacific Fleet commander, reached over to his longtime friend, Air Force Lieutenant General Tom McInerney, and told him, quote, "The hammer is the key to the coup," end quote. Admiral Ace Lyons was a friend of mine as well. He was on our show a number of times. Throughout the last year of his life, from when General McInerney brought that information with Admiral Lyons on March 19, 2017, and Ace died in December 2018, every conversation I had with Ace ended with, "David, you're going to get a lot of threats for pushing the information forward about illegal surveillance, about the hammer." But he said, "David, I have every faith that you'll continue to bring the truth forward, no matter what the pressure. Because the key to the coup, the key to General Flynn's freedom, and the key to saving our country is exposing the illegal surveillance through the hammer." And that's why I have put up with all the slander and libel and defamation and lies and falsehoods that have been directed at me and at this platform. My parents always taught me to consider the source of criticism, of threats. I have no respect for those who've been want to hide the illegal activity of Brennan and Clapper and Obama and Comey and Mueller. None. Sally Yates recently had a transcript released. I believe it was on May 4th, 2020, about the meeting that occurred at the White House on January 5th, 2017, with Brennan and Clapper and Comey and Obama, when they talked about the phone call between the Russian ambassador Kislyak and General Flynn, the incoming national security advisor to President Trump. When you look at the unmaskings that occurred, I think there were 49 unmaskings by over 24 Obama zealots in his administration. But when it came to General Flynn, the unmasking stopped on December 28th, and they started again on January 5th. Well, why is that important? Because the two phone calls with the ambassador in question occurred on December 29th and December 31st. There were no unmaskings. Fanning and Jones were right. There were no unmaskings, yet Obama knew about that information. The only way he would know about that, if there were no unmaskings, well, is because it was obtained on a different platform, a parallel platform, not the NSA platform. There wasn't any documented 702 abuse. There was no documented incidental surveillance. Horowitz says that in his own report. And let's not put it past the criminal element in our government, that being Obama, Brennan, and Clapper, to work with fellow criminals in other countries. Let me give you an example. Hypothetical. GCHQ, the NSA kind of equivalent in Britain. There was a director, Robert Hannigan. Would you put it past Brennan and Clapper and Obama to try to cover their tracks a little bit to, share a parallel platform? Maybe a couple, maybe 3, maybe 4, maybe a dozen parallel platforms with Hannigan. One of which including the hammer. To do a little surveillance. No footprints, Robert. No footprints. Don't worry about it. Kind of cover their tracks in a different direction. I wouldn't put anything past those criminals. Bill Binney weighed in on this. Only a few weighed. Bill Binney, one of the 2 top surveillance platform experts in the world. Bar none. Him and Kirk Wiebe. Here's what Bill said. Only a few ways to get a copy of Flynn's conversations. One way would be from the NSA, and one way would be from the hammer. If from the NSA, then there would be a record of who requested it, because of the internal log system. If from the hammer, there would be no record. I vote for the latter option. This is Bill Binney. The hammer. Because they still have not found or charged anyone with the violation of the law. Which brings me to over the weekend. Things drop over the weekend, especially a holiday weekend that, the deep state's hoping you're not going to be aware of, but I'm going to make you aware of it. The United States intelligence community is comprised of and composed of 17 organizations. 2 independent agencies, the Office of the Director of National Intelligence and the Central Intelligence Agency. Independent, yeah, right. 8 Department of Defense elements, such as the Defense Intelligence Agency, of which General Flynn had been the director in the past, the National Security Agency, the National Geospatial Intelligence Agency, the National Reconnaissance Office, and the intelligence elements of 4 Department of Defense services, the Army, Navy, Marine Corps, and Air Force. Well, now we're up to the 2 independent and 8 Department of Defense. That's 10. 7 elements of other departments and agencies also comprise the intelligence community in the United States. The Department of Energy's Office of Intelligence and Counterintelligence, the Department of Homeland Security's Office of Intelligence and Analysis, the U.S. Coast Guard Intelligence, the Department of Justice's Federal Bureau of Investigation. Remember that. The FBI is in the intelligence community, right? Okay. The Drug Enforcement Agency's Office of National Security Intelligence, the Department of State's Bureau of Intelligence and Research, and the Department of Treasury's Office of Intelligence and Analysis. So why do I bring this up? Here's why. Because on Friday night, May 22nd, remember, Sidney let the hammer drop on the deep state, along with General Flynn, on Thursday, May 21st. May 22nd, all of a sudden, Ray, we're gonna look at things. He's been sitting there for 2 years doing nothing. You think Sidney, that clip I played for you, didn't throttle him? I bet it did. And Richard Grinnell, and you gotta love the guy, the acting director of national intelligence. I mean, they couldn't get that guy out of there fast enough, right? Okay. Richard Grinnell, here's what he said Friday. The intelligence community, all 17 agencies I just listed for you, the intelligence community, when it comes to General Flynn and those phone calls, doesn't have all the transcripts and summaries. Listen now, it wasn't our product. What? It wasn't our product of the 17 agencies. So what does that leave you? It leaves you a foreign intelligence service that's using our people, to harvest this stuff because our people knew about it, right? Because they told Obama on January 3rd, according to transcripts. So he talked about it on January 5th at that meeting, 2017. And it came from an illegal surveillance platform, one of which is the hammer. Interesting that this Robert Hannigan dweeb from GCHQ, he resigned. Do you remember? He was the guy who resigned on January 23rd, less than 2 days after President Trump took office, January 23rd, 2017. Said he was leaving for family matters, family issues, spend more time with the family. Oh, stop. Really? I think the guy was 51 at the time. Come on. I think he wanted to blow out of Dodge here fast because he knew what was coming. And he wanted to beat the storm that was going to expose the deep state. Sorry, Bobby. It's not going to work. Oh, one other thing. Doing a little research, it appears that Hannigan gave a character reference for a priest. What's bad about that? The priest was a known pedophile. And Hannigan also gave this, when he gave this recommendation, the priest ended up getting another job. And he acted out again as a pedophile. The deep state is consumed with those scum. Sidney Powell and General Flynn are fighting for not just his freedom, but for your freedom, for my freedom, from every American's freedom. They're in hand-to-hand combat. And they're going to win. And they're going to keep dropping the hammer until the deep state is defeated. I thank you for joining me today. I hope you'll join us on the subscription side of DaveJanda.com. It's 30 cents a day, $9 a month. Subscribe. Give it a try. Because supporting that platform allows me to keep doing these YouTubes, allows us to have the website, allows me to keep doing the radio show. Information you're not going to get from the bought-off lamestream fake media. Become a member. It's the biggest bang for the buck in all the internet. 30 cents a day. I thank you for your time. Until next time, Dave Janda signing off. Dream big and dare to fail. Thank you for your time today.